The tax debate has been well underway now for some weeks, and it certainly dominated much of question time this afternoon with Parliament back. One government backbencher who is arguing the case for at least extending the base of the GST to financial services is Tehan, who joins me now. Thanks for your time.
Pleasure, David.
This afternoon. So you've suggested that if we did increase or expand the GST to financial services, which was exempt at the start, you would raise $4.8 billion next financial year. Does that figure come from the Parliamentary Budget Office?
It does. If you look at the what their figures, which they got from the Treasury of tax foregone, they come up with that figure. So, and that's a conservative figure.
And presumably then they've got some parameters around what financial services would then be covered, if they can be so specific about $4.8 billion.
That's correct. Although this is an area, when it was first looked at, it was decided that it was a little difficult to be able to do this. The technology wasn't there. Given now that we've moved on since 1998, 2015, it is believed there are innovative ways that you could now do this, and if you do it, there is revenue there. But we've got to remember, you wouldn't do it just to tax financial services. What you're looking to do is to change your tax mix so you can grow your economy and so that you can provide an economy which is going to produce jobs into the future. And that's a very important point, is we have to set the overall parameters of why we're doing this.
So what financial services would be covered under this plan?
Well, so to give you an idea, at the moment, if you go to a flexi teller at a bank and you use a bank where it doesn't charge you a fee, you get your money back out and there's no fee applied by the bank. If you use a flexi teller where they do ask for a fee, so it might be you're asked for a $2 withdrawal fee, you would put the GST on that fee.
So you'd be paying $2.20 on that?
You'd be paying $2.20.
Okay, and what about a loan application fee?
So a loan application fee, you would pay it on the fee. So if the bank asks for a fee for that loan application, then yes, you would apply it to that fee.
And all bank fees and charges that you
Well, the idea is that you would apply it as broadly as you can across the sector.
But not a transfer, so a mortgage repayment from one account to another?
No, that's right, exactly.
All right. Well, could some banks then take a loan application fee, which can be around $1,000, I think, and more in some cases? Could the banks repackage that, make it not call it a bank a loan application fee and build it in some other way to avoid the GST?
Well, this is one of the things that obviously needs to be looked at. You want to make sure, if you are going to go down this path, you want the system to be as robust as possible. Now, when this was looked at initially, given that where the technology was at, it was decided this is a little difficult. But now, for instance, we're able to do it with the gambling sector. So if you can apply it there, the argument goes, then yes, we should re-look at the financial services sector and see whether we can apply it there.
Joe Weatherall in South Australia has been arguing this case as well, and potentially if you did increase the GST to 15%, then you'd be raising a whole lot of money out of this. But again, it's going to hit right across the board, isn't it? The low income earners, the high income earners, and those on social welfare as well. So what sort of compensation do you think needs to accompany anything that's done here?
Well, there needs to be fair compensation. Now, what it would look like would depend on what the final package looks like. And so it's very hard to sort of speculate about this. What we want, and what the Prime Minister said in question time quite clearly today, is let's have the debate, let's have the discussion. We want a tax system which sets our economy up for the 21st century, that'll grow the economy, that'll grow jobs. So let's have the debate, let's have the discussion. And once you get an overall package, we want to make sure that that package is fair, and you look at what compensation would be required. But at the moment, we're having the debate, and I think it's very, very healthy. We are showing real economic leadership here. It's something which I think the nation is crying out for, and we're prepared to do that. We've said everything is on the table. Let's have the debate. Let's have the discussion. We want to grow our economy. We want to grow jobs in the economy. So let's do it.
Now, Tehan, let me ask you just finally to put your other hat on as the chair of the Joint Intelligence and Security Committee. The government is, I think even this week, expected to bring in legislation for the stripping of citizenship from dual nationals who've been involved in terrorism. The ministers basically said your committee's bipartisan recommendations will be adopted as long as they stack up constitutionally. I mean, you must be happy, I suppose, to see those that sort of assurance that the recommendations will be picked up. Just remind us, though, it will mean you can lose your citizenship for advocating or financing terror. I just wanted to ask, could that mean, in your view, someone who maybe accidentally funds terrorism? They think they're donating to a charity and it ends up in a terrorist's hands?
No. I mean, and look, this law
has to be deliberate.
It has to be deliberate. This was considered in a bipartisan nature by the committee. We looked at every aspect and every element of this. You've got to remember now there's been 4 major pieces of legislation, over 120 odd recommendations. There were 27 here which we've used to tighten and reduce the scope of this legislation. We've also made it retrospective in one nature, that if you've been sentenced to a terrorist to jail for a terrorist act for 10 years or more, that will be applied retrospective. It took a lot of time, a lot of effort. I think as a committee we got it right. I'll wait and see what the government has to say tomorrow or the next day when we see its response.
And the final one, the 5th tranche, which apparently will include lowering the age at which control orders can apply to 14, is that going to come before your committee? My
understanding is yes, it will. It will be introduced into the Parliament and come before our committee, and we will look at that. We will examine it like we have every other piece of terror legislation which has come to the Parliament, and I would expect we would, as a committee, report back to the Parliament sometime in the new year.
Okay. Dan Tehan, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. David. We'll take a break and then back with our panel, Graham Morris and Bruce.